11 weird facts about cruise ships they don't tell you. You're standing on deck, sipping a pina colada, watching the sunset. But just a few floors below, there's a room most passengers never know exists. And that's just the beginning. Cruise ships are floating cities packed with secrets the industry hopes you'll never discover. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 11 weird facts that'll completely change how you see your next cruise. Wait till you hear number 8. It involves physics, massive fins, and the reason your floating hotel doesn't tip over. Let's dive in. Number 1. Every cruise ship has a special medical facility below deck. Here's something they don't mention in the glossy brochures. Every single ocean-going cruise ship is legally required to have a dedicated medical facility on board. Not just an infirmary, a specialized room for the most serious situations, usually tucked away on deck 2 or 3, right along the crew corridor that staff call a 95 because it runs the entire length of the ship. Now you might think, come on, how often could they possibly need that? More than you'd expect. An estimated 200 passengers pass away on cruise ships every single year worldwide. Between 2014 and 2017, the Broward County Medical Examiner in Fort Lauderdale alone reported 91 incidents on ships arriving at their port. That's just one port in just 3 years. These facilities vary by ship size. Smaller vessels have limited capacity. Mega ships, they're equipped to handle significantly more. These aren't cozy rooms. Clinical, temperature-controlled, secured areas where situations are handled with dignity until the ship reaches port, where local authorities take over. Most incidents are natural causes: heart attacks, strokes. The cruise demographic skews older, and unfortunately, some passengers experience medical emergencies that can't be resolved at sea. The Miami Herald once reported a situation where a ship's facilities reached capacity during an extended voyage. The industry insists these situations are remarkably rare, given that over 21 million people cruise annually. And statistically, they're right. But it doesn't change the fact that on your relaxing Caribbean getaway, these facilities exist for serious medical situations just a few decks below the buffet. Number 2. Cruise ship captains cannot actually marry you. This is one of the biggest myths in maritime history, repeated in countless movies and romantic fantasies. The truth? In almost every case, your ship's captain has zero legal authority to perform a wedding ceremony. Think about it. You're in international waters, the ship is registered in the Bahamas, the captain is Italian, the couple is American. Whose laws apply? The answer is complicated, and in most cases, it means the captain simply can't marry you. Only 3 countries authorize captain-performed marriages: Bermuda, Malta, and the Bahamas. And even then, only when the ship is registered under those specific flags and you're in international waters. Japan allows it too, but only if both people getting married hold valid Japanese passports. That's it. That's the list. So how do all those captain weddings happen on cruise ships? Here's the secret. Many captains become ordained ministers through organizations like the Universal Life Church. You can do it online in about 5 minutes. When they perform your ceremony, they're acting as clergy, not as the ship's captain. It's a legal loophole wrapped in white captains' uniforms and maritime romance. The U.S. Navy actually has explicit regulations forbidding ship commanders from performing marriage ceremonies at sea. It's right there in the code, 32 CFR 700.716. The military figured this out a long time ago. But cruise lines, they've built an entire revenue stream around the fantasy. Wedding packages, renewal of vows ceremonies, all perfectly legal as long as the captain has that ordination certificate tucked away somewhere. The romance is real. The maritime authority to marry, that's Hollywood fiction. Number 3, your cruise ship gets 0.002 miles per gallon. Let's talk about the environmental elephant in the room, or more accurately, the whale-sized carbon footprint in the ocean. Large cruise ships burn 250 tons of fuel every single day. That's over 80,000 gallons daily. At current fuel prices, that's $100,000 to $200,000 just to keep the engines running. But here's the number that'll blow your mind. These massive vessels consume 30 to 50 gallons of fuel per nautical mile. Do the math, and you get roughly 0.002 miles per gallon. Your car probably gets 25 to 30 miles per gallon. Even a gas-guzzling SUV gets 15. We're talking about fuel economy that's literally 10,000 times worse. Now, before you start feeling too guilty about that cruise you booked, there's a bit of nuance here. Modern ships are actually becoming more efficient. Symphony of the Seas uses 25% less fuel than earlier ships in the same class thanks to innovations like air lubrication systems. These create tiny bubbles under the hull that reduce friction, kind of like an air hockey table, letting the ship glide more smoothly through the water. But the scale is still staggering. To put it in perspective, a typical 5-day cruise generates about 500 kilograms of CO2 per passenger. That's roughly twice the greenhouse gas emissions of flying the same distance. And in 2022, just 218 cruise ships operating in Europe emitted more than 4 times more sulfur oxides than all of Europe's cars combined. Barcelona was Europe's most sulfur-polluted cruise port, with ships pumping out over 18,000 kilograms of sulfur dioxide. When Venice finally banned large cruise ships, sulfur oxide emissions dropped 80%. 80%. That's the impact of just one city saying enough. So yeah, when you're enjoying that all-you-can-eat buffet and unlimited drink package, the ship beneath you is basically a floating gas station that never stops filling up. Number 4, ships legally discharge treated wastewater just 3 miles from shore. Okay, this one's going to change how you think about those pristine Caribbean waters. Remember that snorkeling trip you were planning? The water might not be quite as untouched as you imagine. A typical cruise ship with 3,000 passengers and crew generates 210,000 gallons of wastewater every single week, plus another million gallons of gray water from sinks, showers, and laundry. We're talking about volumes that would overwhelm a small town's treatment plant. Now, where does it all go? Modern ships have advanced wastewater treatment systems, multi-stage processes with screening, biological treatment, membrane filtration, and disinfection. Sounds great, right? Except here's the kicker. Under international maritime law, specifically MARPOL regulations, ships can discharge treated wastewater just 3 nautical miles from shore. 3 miles. That's basically still inside of land. The regulations vary based on treatment levels and distance from shore. Only the Baltic Sea has special protections requiring all passenger ships to treat wastewater before any discharge into those waters. But there's more. Food waste, those mountains of uneaten buffet food, vegetable scraps, and kitchen waste. Ships can process it, grind it into smaller pieces, and discharge it beyond certain distances from land. The industry frames this as returning organic matter to the ocean, but it contains substances and nutrients that don't naturally belong in marine ecosystems at those concentrations. The volumes are staggering. Ships generate enough waste daily to fill 110 trucks. That's 2,100 tons of wastewater, 24 tons of wet waste, and 14 tons of dry waste every single day. Princess Cruises paid a $40 million fine in 2016 for using bypass systems to avoid treatment protocols. Royal Caribbean paid $20 million in 2019 for improper waste disposal. So the next time you're floating in those crystal clear Caribbean waters, just remember, there's a decent chance treated wastewater was legally discharged in the general area where you're swimming. Number 5, crew members work 300+ hours monthly with 0 days off. While you're enjoying your 7-day vacation, let's talk about the people making it possible. Your cabin steward, your waiter, the bartender who remembers your drink order. They're working 10 to 13 hours per day, 7 days a week, with absolutely 0 days off, for contracts lasting 6 to 9 months straight. Let that sink in. 0 days off for half a year. That's 300 to 400 hours of work every single month. For comparison, a full-time job in the US is typically 160 to 170 hours monthly. These crew members are working more than double that, continuously. And where do they live? About 85% of cruise ship employees live below the waterline, in cabins measuring 9 feet by 9 feet, shared with 2 to 4 other people. That's 120 square feet total, with bunk beds stacked so close together that privacy is basically non-existent. The walls are so thin you hear your neighbors' conversations. The ceilings are so low you can't stand up straight if you're in a top bunk. And the rooms are so small that crew members say only one person can stand at a time while everyone else waits on their bunks. One crew member described the adjustment. It's amazing what you get used to working on a cruise ship. You learn to tune out everything and make the tiny space work. Maritime law theoretically limits work to 14 hours in any 24-hour period or 72 hours weekly, but these regulations are routinely circumvented with crew pressured to underreport hours to avoid regulatory scrutiny. The only position that gets scheduled time off? Spa staff get 1 day off every 2 weeks. Everyone else work every single day for months. Why do people accept these conditions? Money. The median compensation at major cruise lines is just $15,000 annually. But for crew members from the Philippines, Indonesia, and India, where 30% of all cruise workers come from, this represents life-changing income. Filipino cruise workers sent home $32.2 billion in remittances in 2019. That money supports entire families and drives whole national economies. So the next time your cabin steward is folding your towels into a swan at 10 p.m., remember, they've been working since 7 a.m. They have 6 more months before their next day off, and they're doing it so their family back home can survive. Number 6, 90% of cruise ships fly foreign flags to avoid U.S. laws. You're on a Carnival cruise, American company, right? Departing from Miami. American port, mostly American passengers. The ship must be American. Nope, it's registered in Panama. Here's a secret the cruise industry doesn't advertise. Approximately 90% of cruise ships calling at U.S. ports fly foreign flags despite being operated by American companies. This practice is called flag of convenience, and it's a legal loophole that's been exploited since 1922. That year, businessman W. Averill Harriman registered ships under the Panamanian flag to circumvent prohibition laws and serve alcohol on board. Prohibition ended in 1933, but the practice continued because registering in countries like Panama, Bahamas, Liberia, and the Marshall Islands offers massive advantages. Like what? Hiring international crew from lower-wage countries, avoiding most U.S. labor laws, and dramatically reducing corporate tax liabilities. Panama alone earned over $300 million from ship registrations in 2022. It's a revenue stream for small countries and a tax haven for cruise corporations. But here's where it gets problematic. When serious incidents occur on these ships, jurisdiction becomes a nightmare. Is it the flag state's laws, U.S. federal law, the state where the ship docked? International waters have different rules than territorial waters. Multiple countries can claim authority, but none effectively investigate. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, 48 serious incidents were reported on cruise ships, and those are just the ones reported. Many situations fall through jurisdictional cracks because the ship is Bahamian flagged, the affected person is American, the other party is European, and the incident happened in international waters. This legal limbo extends to labor rights too. When your cabin steward works 80-hour weeks with no overtime pay in conditions that would be restricted on land, who enforces protections? The flag state rarely does. The U.S. can't because it's not a U.S. ship. The result is an industry that's optimized for profit while externalizing costs onto workers and legal systems. Number 7. Ships produce their own water and make 110,000 pounds of ice daily. Here's something genuinely impressive. That shower you took this morning, that coffee you're drinking, the ice in your cocktail, it was all seawater yesterday. Modern cruise ships produce over 90% of their water needs through desalination. Large ships can produce and store approximately 500,000 gallons of fresh water while simultaneously churning out 110,000 pounds of ice every single day. The technology is actually fascinating. Most ships use one of two methods. Flash evaporation systems use waste heat from the ship's engines to boil seawater at low pressure, with the steam condensing into fresh water. It's essentially a massive distillery. The other method is reverse osmosis, where seawater gets forced through membranes with pores measuring just 40 nanometers. That's about 1,000 times smaller than a human hair. The pure water molecules pass through, but salt, bacteria, and impurities stay behind. After desalination, the water undergoes mineralization for taste and chlorination to meet U.S. Public Health Service standards. Some cruise engineers claim it's among the most thoroughly treated water available due to the intensive processing. And here's a clever detail. All condensate from air conditioning systems gets collected and reused in laundry operations. Free water from humidity. But the energy required is enormous. Symphony of the Seas has 6 diesel generators producing 85 megawatts of total power. That's enough electricity to supply a city of 85,000 people, just to run the ship's hotel services, propulsion systems, and water production. This self-sufficiency is actually crucial because cruise ships can't just pull into port and fill up water tanks. The volumes are too massive, so they became floating desalination plants out of necessity. It's impressive engineering. It's also energy intensive and adds to that challenging fuel economy we talked about earlier. Number 8. Massive underwater fins keep your ship from tipping over. Okay, this is where cruise ship engineering gets legitimately mind-blowing. You're looking at these floating skyscrapers, 18 decks high, towering above the ocean, and you think, how does that thing not just tip over? The answer involves counterintuitive physics and some seriously cool technology. First, the basics. Despite looking top-heavy, cruise ships are designed with the heaviest components low in the hull. Engines, fuel tanks, ballast water, all deep in the bottom. The upper decks use aluminum and lightweight materials extensively. Weight is distributed evenly from port to starboard, keeping the center of gravity low and centered. Marine stability tests show cruise ships can roll to nearly 60 degrees before reaching critical angles. Though 15 degrees would be extremely uncomfortable for passengers, so they never let it get that far. But here's the secret weapon: active fin stabilizers. These are massive fins that extend out from below the waterline, kind of like airplane wings sticking out from the hull. As the ship rolls, these fins rotate and adjust in real time, creating counteracting forces that reduce roll by up to 90%. Think of it like this. The ship starts to roll right. Sensors detect this instantly. The right fin angles down, the left fin angles up. The water pressure against these angled surfaces pushes back against the roll. It's like having a gyroscope made of water pressure in physics. And here's the surprising part. Most ocean cruise ships have flat bottoms, not V-shaped hulls like you might expect. Flat bottoms maximize interior space and actually increase stability because more of the ship's volume stays submerged at a consistent depth. It looks wrong, but it works. The stabilizers are so effective that passengers on modern megaships barely feel any motion, even in rough seas. You'll see your drink sitting perfectly still on a table while waves crash outside. That's not luck. That's millions of dollars of engineering working beneath you every second to keep everything level. Number 9, there are detention facilities on cruise ships, and they get used. Remember that specialized medical facility we talked about? Well, cruise ships also have security detention areas. They call them brigs in maritime terminology, and they're located near the bottom of the ship in crew-only areas you'll never see on any passenger deck plan. These aren't the iron-barred cells from pirate movies. They're secure rooms with basic furnishings, bathroom facilities, and no windows. Think more secure holding area than maximum security, but they're very real, and they're used as last resorts for serious situations. What leads to someone being detained? Serious incidents involving violence, drug possession, passengers who become unruly or dangerous, or situations where someone poses a risk to themselves or others. Cabin confinement with security stationed outside is more common, but when someone becomes a significant safety concern, more secure measures are taken. The statistics justify these facilities. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, 48 serious incidents were reported. The year 2025 is projected to reach 182 total reported incidents, nearly double the 92 reported in 2016. And those are just the ones officially documented. Here's what's interesting. 7 Carnival ships don't have these facilities at all. The Spirit Class and Excellence Class vessels rely exclusively on cabin confinement because they're smaller ships where space is at a premium. On those ships, if a serious situation arises, security personnel literally monitor the cabin door around the clock until the ship reaches port and authorities can intervene. Most passengers never know these facilities exist. You're enjoying karaoke on Deck 12 while several levels below, secure areas exist for managing the most challenging situations. It's another one of those parallel realities that cruise lines work very hard to keep invisible. Number 10, ships operate on a nationality-based work structure. Here's something you might notice if you pay attention. There are clear patterns in who does what job on a cruise ship, and it's not random, it's systematic. Filipinos comprise 30% of the entire cruise industry workforce. They're the dominant nationality. Nearly 50% of Norwegian Cruise Line's crew are Filipino. Indians are the second largest group, Indonesians third, and the job distribution follows clear patterns. Filipinos, Indians, and Indonesians predominantly work housekeeping, dining service, bars, and galley kitchens. Officers and higher-ranking positions, predominantly British, Italian, Greek, and American. Crew members have even developed informal networks based on nationality. If you're consistently difficult with crew members from a particular background, word spreads quickly through their network. You might find yourself receiving extra attention from security or your request getting processed with additional verification. It's an organic system that developed in an industry with minimal formal worker protections. One crew member explained the dynamics. Everyone looks out for their own. If someone's having trouble, their community helps them navigate it. Why does this structure exist? Economics. The International Transport Workers Federation designates 43 countries as flags of convenience where labor protections are minimal. In 2022 alone, they recovered over $36.5 million in owed wages from cruise and cargo vessels. That's just what they caught. The reality is that the entire cruise model depends on international labor sourcing, hiring workers from countries where $15,000 annually represents significant income, having them work conditions that would be heavily regulated on land, and organizing work assignments along lines that reflect global economic disparities. Your affordable cruise exists partly because the people serving you are from places where economic alternatives are limited. It's worth thinking about while you're being served breakfast by someone who hasn't had a day off in 4 months. Number 11. There's a secret crew-only city at the front of the ship. While passengers crowd around the main pools and fight for deck chairs, there's an entire parallel world at the very front of the ship that you're never allowed to access, the crew-only areas. The main crew corridor, called I-95, runs the full length of the lower decks. Thick pipes across ceilings, non-slip industrial floors, zero decorative finishes. This corridor serves as the crew's highway and temporary storage for luggage, supplies, and equipment during constant operations passengers never witness. But the real secret is up top. At the very bow of the ship, completely hidden from passenger view, are crew-only pools, sun decks, and recreational areas. On the newest ships like Icon of the Seas, these crew neighborhoods have been expanded with gyms, lounges, and outdoor spaces because cruise lines finally realized that crew retention depends on providing some quality of life after those long shifts. Crew also have separate dining facilities organized by rank. The crew mess for entry-level staff, the staff mess for middle management, the officer mess for senior crew, and the captain's private dining room. The hierarchy is explicit and structured. The crew bars are notable. Drinks cost $1 to $1.50 each. That's not a typo. $1 drinks. After 12-hour shifts in cramped quarters, these bars become essential social spaces. The cruise lines keep prices low because they understand crew need affordable ways to decompress. The captain's quarters deserve special mention. They rival luxury suites with separate bedroom, living room, dining room that seats 6, full office with multiple monitors, and a master bathroom with premium fixtures. The captain's accommodation takes up more space than crew cabins housing 4 people. It's a floating city within a city. 2 completely separate worlds operating simultaneously. One designed for maximum comfort and entertainment, the other designed for maximum efficiency with minimum cost. And they exist on the same vessel, separated by locked doors and crew-only signs that passengers walk past without a second thought. So there you have it. 11 weird facts that cruise lines definitely don't highlight in their marketing materials. From specialized facilities in detention areas to impossible fuel economy and complex labor structures, cruise ships are far more intricate than the glossy brochures suggest. Does this mean you shouldn't cruise? Not necessarily, but it does mean you should cruise with your eyes open. That cabin steward who's so attentive, they haven't had a day off in 6 months, that pristine ocean you're swimming in, treated wastewater was likely discharged in that general area recently. That romantic captain's wedding, the captain probably got ordained online last week. Cruise ships are engineering marvels and human achievements. They're also complex systems with environmental challenges and labor practices that operate in regulatory gray areas. Both things can be true simultaneously. If you learned something new today, hit that like button and subscribe for more cruise secrets the industry doesn't want you to know. Drop a comment below with Cruise Smart if you're going to think twice before your next cruise. And tell me, which of these facts surprised you the most? Was it the fuel economy, the working conditions, the wastewater protocols? I want to know what got you. Thanks for watching, and remember, every vacation has hidden costs. The question is whether you're willing to see them.